How to be an artist. Step 9. Finding joy in your work. With guest Jess Smiley. I'm kind of interested in the story of how kind of the health issues kind of arose, and then maybe kind of where you're at now and what that arcs look like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. And I've been able to work regularly for the last 6 months or so. So I've got quite a few projects I'm doing now, but
Wow.
it's just been wild.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like give me an overview about how kind of the health stuff started to emerge. And then I'm very interested in kind of how you're kind of doing now.
Yeah, it's weird. This is 2.5 years ago, November 2017. I was healthy, I was active, I'd, go on hikes, I'd ride my bike, went out with the kids and everything, played. And the family got like the stomach flu,
Hmm.
and I caught it from them, it wasn't terrible, but I I threw up, and
Yeah.
and it was the first time in 11 years actually, and it was so violent. I felt something
Wow.
tear or pull in my upper abdomen just below my rib cage,
Whoa.
and it was treated for the next 8 months as an abdominal tear. They thought I tore the muscles up there.
Huh.
um, but it never got better. It actually got worse, and then it started spreading to my sides, and then it went to my back, and it stayed in all the places, but just added new areas of my body.
Huh.
And then once it hit my back, within a month of it hitting my back, like I was just bedridden. I could not.
Wow.
Like after this happened, I literally stayed in bed for 3 days. I couldn't get up to use the restroom. Like it was that painful.
Wow. And how long of a time then was that from the first incident to kind of being in bed, being stuck in bed?
About a year.
That was about a year. So just slow progression for over a course of a year.
Yeah, and it's weird because at first, like it kind of, I don't know, I kind of got used to the pain and figured out how I could move with it, and then it got a little worse, and I figured out how to move with it, and then, yeah, a year in, it hit my back and spread to my back and just took me down.
Wow.
I don't recommend it.
Jeez, yeah, no. So where are you now? Like how is it? Has it changed in any way since then, or stabilized, or?
Um, it's it's been pretty much the same intensity in the same areas. Um,
Hmm.
I now I get this fun. Everyone loves talking about health problems. I have like some pretty bad spasms that come along with it,
Huh.
uh, and then there's all the fun like side effects of different medications we're trying to try and treat it.
Oh, geez.
And I've seen at this point I've seen more than 40 medical professionals
Wow.
multiple times, and they can't figure it out. They do all these tests and they come back abnormal, and they don't know how to put it all together. They don't know what this is.
Huh. So where are you at right now as far as trying to kind of figure it out? Are you kind of just still kind of trying some things out or taking some guesses or just kind of like dealing with it for the time being?
Well, I'm trying new medications. I'm constantly trying to figure out if I should push myself more in some ways, or if I need to like scale, take it easier in some ways, like physically, like how often I
Hmm.
get up and walk around, and like I really have to push through, and it's just pain. It doesn't go away. It's not like if I walk around every day it gets better. It has not happened. Um,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I can't get out to hospitals and doctors' offices because I have these autoimmune issues that if I get sick on top of all of this, they're not going to know
Yeah.
what to do with me.
So is the autoimmunity something that's emerged with this condition or something that kind of existed before?
I never had autoimmune anything before, and then I mean, within months after that initial, throwing up, I tested on all these autoimmune, um, I don't know, registers. It showed up as potentially this or that or these kinds of autoimmune, but it doesn't like really line up with any specific one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the autoimmune came with it and with the pain. It's all kind of the same thing.
Hmm. Wow, it sounds like just such like a mystery too, and such like a bizarre way to for something to start, you know? Like this discrete moment that was like boom, you know?
Right. Yeah, like yeah, you can pinpoint the day, the event, and like, I don't know, it makes sense that, yeah, if I did throw up and it was really violent, like an abdominal strain or tear makes sense, but they've looked at it, they're like, no, looks fine. Everything in that area is good.
Do you is have you kind of looked at too that like as you do move, it doesn't seem like it's damaging anything? Like there's nothing that they can see that's like clearly damaged in any way?
Yeah, and that is really frustrating actually, because
Yeah.
if you're moving around and it hurts when you do it and you can feel it like pulling and pushing and creating
Oof.
more pain, but all the doctors are saying from what we can see there's no damage being done. Like that just messes with you so much because you feel it, something's going on. There's just no
Yeah.
way of measuring it that you've discovered or identifying or acknowledging it.
Yeah, so it's like these people from the outside, they can objectively look at it and be like, everything looks fine. And that doesn't match up with like your subjective experience of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and they do have, I mean, tons of like blood labs and different tests that show, yeah, I absolutely have markers that show up as potentially these problems, but it the whole thing doesn't quite line up. So they just don't know how to put all the information together. And I don't
Makes sense.
know, yeah, and I only know my experience with it. I don't They didn't teach me medical stuff in art school, so
Didn't teach you diagnostics in art school.
no. Yeah.
The anatomy was perfunctory too. It was like just enough to know what to draw.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
so then how are you working your day then as far as like how many hours do you actually work? I'm like amazed that you're even working right now, honestly.
The work helps because otherwise it's just pain, and I just do things to try and um, ignore the pain. But
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, that's kind of like eating an imitation food, because it's not like you're not getting the thing itself. You're not getting what you want out of it because it's not actually it. It's just an imitation. So if I'm just doing activities to block out the pain, it's not
Mm.
really resolving anything, and it's not allowing me to do anything more than block out the pain. But if I'm working, I'm actually doing something that I love. It's meaningful. It's
Yeah.
something that I can contribute to the world and to other people, and that brings in, resources for my family. So it does a lot for me emotionally and mentally. And I work um, probably 6 to 9 hours each day.
Wow.
Wow. Now this is something that I actually am very envious of, and this is definitely something I need to figure out because I see people like you that, I mean, is it a fair characterization to say that you actually find art as something that like you working on art like actively makes your life better, like you feel better when you are making art?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and that's something that like for me, I've had a little bit more of a tortured relationship sometimes. I mean, I can definitely see times when like I've sat down and you get in a groove and you feel good and you're enjoying it, but it doesn't seem as unambiguously positive as as it does for someone like you. There's other artists I see that too that just find like a real joy in creating art. So, um, how much of that too would you say is like you're doing client work versus doing stuff? I mean, are you doing stuff for yourself too that you just enjoy doing for the fun of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, man, I honestly, I really feel for you. Uh, like, and I've definitely had, not like I'm like pitying you or anything. I just,
Sure, sure, yeah.
I can, I can definitely understand. And there definitely hits a moment in every project where it's just work. It's just grinding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like um, let's see, I'm trying to rein it in. I'm all over the place. I've never had to question the role of writing, drawing, storytelling, creating in my life. I know that when I when I follow it, when I'm actively pursuing it and working on it and paying attention and learning and pushing myself, that things just work out. They just line up, and I don't understand the mechanism. I don't feel like I have to look under the hood and see how it's working. Um, but I just know that it does.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so it's an activity that every time I do it, I always get a return. And a lot of that
Hmm.
has been, I've always pushed, I've been really stubborn, I've been really hard headed about it, for better and definitely for worse, about pursuing my own projects.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've gotten the bulk of any client work. People just reaching out saying, "Hey, I saw you did this album artwork. Do you think you could do something like that, but as a mural?" Or they see the mural and they're like, "Do you think you could do like a logo kind of like that?" And I love all of it because all of it is it's visual communication. Or storytelling in a way, or trying to use language in certain ways, whether it's visual language or written language. It's taking concepts and condensing them or translating them. And to me, that's all fascinating. And because I've been pushing to get my own stories out there, um, I've been really lucky enough to get enough opportunities where I've been able to make those stories and tell more, and then get more people on board, and them thinking, what if you do your thing with my thing and we combine, and it's great. So
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I know I'm lucky. I know I'm blessed to have that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think this is one thing that's really helpful for people starting out to hear, just this idea that you're gonna get the kind of work that you do. And it's a little bit harder for me. It's like ha- sometimes making art for me is like having a urinary tract infection. It's just like it doesn't come out quite so smoothly all the time. But I'm always happy when it does, and it's like anytime that I focus on just saying like this doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to do this thing that I really care about for some reason, it always turns out better for me. And the more pure I can get in that place, the more purely I can be in a place where I'm like, this is just I'm doing this just out of love and curiosity and interest. The better results I get, and the more that gets little by little influenced by whatever ambition or thinking I need to fit some sort of market, that kind of usually waters down kind of the effect of something. So, but for you, I mean, is it the type of thing though where you will go to bed at night or wake up in the morning and thinking about, oh yeah, I can't wait to work on this thing. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Can't wait to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And I because I knew from the beginning, like I've got stuff I want to make. I've got things I want to say. I know how I want to say it because I kind of start from that position. I I choose to work on projects that I want to make. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
something that, like, there definitely every now and then I have to take on some paid work to, just to pay the bills or to learn a new skill set, or to strengthen a client relationship or something like that. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. But also, um, I for the most part, I get to pick and choose what I work on. And so I figure, well, if it's an awesome project and the end result is going to be awesome, then I also better make sure that the process of creating it is just as enjoyable. And so for me, whenever I plan a project, about 50% of it goes into planning, process, and methods, so that I don't overwork myself, I don't let it drag out too long, I get to focus on the aspects of the thing that I like, so that in the end, the means harmonize with the end. And
Wow.
that's part of making it sustainable for me, so that I want to do more, so that I can do more.
Man, that is like so wise, honestly. Like I spent so much of my career with this mindset of like, if I can just get through this thing, like the heroic mindset of like, this is gonna suck. This is gonna suck, but I just need to get through it. But man, if you can just like really focus on like, how can I make this an enjoyable process? And that doesn't mean that, I mean that you can still do that and put in a lot of work, right? Um, so you have to, it's not about like being lazy or whatever, but um, yeah, that's like fantastic. I don't think I ever really explicitly thought about that working through a project. Thought about like, okay, how can I do this? So this is, I mean, definitely with time. After getting my butt kicked a few times, I was like, okay, I know how much I can take. I'm not going to overextend myself, but going to the extent of saying, being actively thinking about like, how can I make this as enjoyable as possible? I think that's something I could definitely try to work into my process and planning a little bit more.
Well, and and it can be as simple as, um, okay, I'm getting, so so much money to work on this thing that maybe I'm not thrilled about, but I need the money, or whatever reason it lines up with your career, but you're not like thrilled about the project itself. It could be as easy as, hey, I'm gonna buy that new whatever album and listen to it, and I'm gonna at least be able to enjoy that while I'm doing something that uses my skills. Like it could be that easy.
No, that's really cool. That's, I mean, unintentionally, I kind of ended up doing that the last project I was working on, where I was just like, here's a band I'm not familiar with. I'm just going to listen to a bunch of their discography and see if I like any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of became a project within a project, right?
For sure. Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, that's the other aspect of it, is like turning whatever the project is into a game, like mentally kind of parsing through, I don't know, you're doing some illustration and it feels like it's not new territory or anything, but in your mind you think, I'm just gonna mess with texture a little bit more. I'm just gonna concentrate on that as I draw. Now you're learning, you're developing, it's something new, it's something you're considering. You're not just like reciting a drawing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I find too like there's been these paradoxical moments where it's like I got to get through this project, but actually part of getting through the project is actually allowing myself to be absorbed by the project a little bit more, which sometimes means I got to spend a little bit more time on something. Where it's, I remember working on this animated project where it's like, okay, there's a frog that's jumping in a puddle, and it's like, okay, I have to animate a frog jumping in a puddle. And there could have been a quick way that I did that, but I ended up spending probably extra time making this puddle, like really just like enjoying animating the effects of the puddle splash. But I mean, that was really helpful in just staying sane through that project to find like, okay, here's something interesting. But you know what I mean? Trying to find the challenge in that, something, the interesting part of that, and instead of just being like, I have to produce like some sort of machine.
Yeah, yeah. Or you give yourself like, anyway, you break it up into chunks of time. You say, I'm going to just crank out for 20 minutes hard, and I'm just going to go as fast with, doing a good job, but as fast as I can for 20 minutes. You take a break, you do something else 5 minutes, you grind for 30 minutes, take a 5-minute break, I don't know. I think there are different ways of, even if it's just a project that you're not excited about, you don't want to do it, it's going to take a long time. Those are always the hard ones. I think there are ways of breaking it up or looking at it in different ways, or throwing on some good music.
There's always got to be some angle to do it. Yeah, I think that overall idea I just really like. I think it's such a mistake within any career to go in with the idea that you're going to suffer now for some sort of benefit later. You know, that's just I just ruined so many years of my life trying to do that. And it's not to say that like, yeah, you're not going to have to work, but you have to find a way to be healthy and like, mentally good throughout that process, So, man, that's so good to hear.
You do the work that you want to produce because that's what people will see, and then they want more of that thing. But it's also like you spend your time the way you want to spend more time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, geez, I feel like I just like my career.
It took me a long time to get there because there is that side of me. I was talking with my editor yesterday, and I was like, look, there's also this dangerous side of me that knows I'll do whatever it takes to make the deadline. And that's not always a healthy thing, but I will do it because I care about the project and I know that it affects other people and their timelines. And so like I want to make sure on my end that I'm doing things in a healthier way to arrive at the deadline or the conclusion or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I don't have quite that same feeling. I can definitely like I can definitely grind. I know how to crunch when crunch needs to happen, but I've never been a good marathon artist as far as like, okay, let's do a lot of hours for a long time. Like my breaking point comes pretty quick if I'm in that place.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interesting when I mentioned before, kind of looking at you and the things that I envy. The other thing I honestly envy, and this is going to sound kind of odd, but I left the LDS Mormon Church, quite a few years ago, and you're still a member, right? Am I right in that?
Yeah.
And I look at someone like you, and another artist I think of is someone like Anthony Holden, if you're familiar with him. Like you guys are like active Mormon guys. You love the church, and I can see that it like sincerely brings you guys like a lot of happiness. You made a post the other day about you lost something and you said a prayer about it, and you kind of like I can't remember the details. Maybe you can go into more detail about that, but that's the other thing I really envy is like I think it's really cool that you can find real joy out of that, and like if the church had been able to do that for me, like I totally would still be a member.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work that way for me, but I'm interested in how like your faith interfaces with like the work you do. Like I don't know necessarily how it informs what you do, but more about like how it, I don't know, makes your life good, like improves your well-being, just like contributes to you being like a happy person.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big set of questions for sure.
Big box of worms there, but
Don't say the wrong thing, Jess. Uh, no, I appreciate you asking, and I also appreciate that like it's not always easy to have a conversation where there are two different sets of beliefs or experiences. So I just appreciate you know just you're kind of coming at this as like, no, this works for you. So like, what's going on with that?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I kind of like I was saying with drawing, where I've never had to question it. Every time I draw, there's a return in some way. I learn something. I feel better. There's some sort of progression. It's kind of the same thing for me and the church. I've never questioned it. I've never had to, but I have found myself in many situations where my understanding or my faith for sure has been bolstered. It's been strengthened. It's been enlivened, reinvigorated, reinforced, and there have definitely been times in my life where I didn't like follow the teachings as closely, and I just felt crummy. Things did not work out, as one way to put it. And like the closer that I align myself with with the beliefs that I have and with my understanding of how the church operates, I just see more meaning and value and return in my life. Again, I don't necessarily know all the mechanics or anything, but I just see that
Hmm.
it works, and I appreciate it. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. I think what a lot of people miss sometimes is they think this issue of like what we believe is somehow just this intellectual exercise, you know? And I look at the people that I know and that I love that for whom the church is a big part of their lives, and they've read all the same stuff I have, you know? Like they're like have seen all the same statistics, whatever, stories, and you know, they still choose to do that while I don't. And it's just like there's clearly it's about more than facts, right? I mean, not that those facts shouldn't be like acknowledged, and you know, with some of my other friends, like I do challenge them on some of those things, but it's really more about like how it affects your life, right?
For for me, for sure, because all I can speak from is my own experience with it.
I'm kind of interested. Could you like just I want to hear. Could you like go over that story you were telling the other day on Facebook? Because I can't remember the details, so I just want to hear it again. Um, if you can explain that.
Yeah, so it was cool hearing you describe it because I've only, I posted on Facebook and I mentioned it to some friends and family, and then there's been a little bit of time between that, so that was cool to hear. So it was actually, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago that I wrapped up a 2 month long project that really was about 4 months worth of work that I did in half the time. Um, and I found out that a, about a week to 2 weeks worth of work was just gone. The files were gone. I'd done the work. I had already solved the problems. I had done it. In fact, I was ahead. I was like a week ahead of my deadline. And so then I started like feeling awful, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to solve the same problems again. I'm going to have to go through all that again for another week. And like I just felt awful. And so I was just praying. I was like, man, please send help. Like I'm doing everything that I know how to look for these files. I'm just everything. I'm pulling out external drives. I'm looking on the cloud. I'm looking at just everything, and I cannot find these files. And a couple of cool things happened. One was so I prayed for help. I prayed for guidance, for counsel, for direction, for some sort of clarity to kind of muddle through the situation. And the first cool thing that happened was I just had an impression. I didn't hear like a voice. I didn't have necessarily a feeling, but I did have an impression that was outside of my own thoughts that said, call it a night, go to sleep, deal with it in the morning. And that goes against my nature so hard. like like my nature, like I said, I'm so stubborn. My nature is to push until either it
Yeah.
happens or until I break or the thing I'm working on breaks. Like that's my nature. Um,
Hmm.
and so then I have this impression outside of that saying, just call it a night and deal with it in the morning. So I'm like, the second cool thing that happened was I accepted it. I was like, okay, I'm actually going to listen to this. And I went to sleep. I actually had a good night's sleep. That's the third cool thing that
Mm.
happened. I don't get good nights of sleep in this much pain, let
Yeah.
alone with all the stress on top of it. And then the fourth final cool thing was I woke up in the morning basically with a prayer in my being already continuing from the night before, and just this clear thought came into my mind of how to access the files. And it's a way that I've never, it's nothing, it'd be hard to describe here, but it's absolutely something that I've never done before, I've never considered before, I've never had to face before. And within about the next hour, I had every single file, right, everything that I'd been looking for. And so, I mean, my prayers for the rest of the day were just, thank you, hallelujah. Like, I mean, if you can imagine not having to do another week or two of work that you don't want to do, uh,
Yeah.
made a huge plus, like I said, that was during the quarantine of the pandemic. So I was helping my kids with their schoolwork and stressed out that we couldn't access everything they need and it wasn't working, and my inbox is flooded with emails from teachers in the school district and all these changes, and then now I've lost work on top of that. So it was absolutely a blessing. Like that is something I'm grateful for, and I hope I don't forget.
That's cool. When you think about that, how much do you feel like there was something that felt like exterior to yourself, which you kind of felt, and how much did you feel like there was something going on inside of you, some sort of softening or change inside of you, or
Um,
Yeah, I like that you phrased it that way, a softening or a change inside me, because I was also surprised that I was so quick to take the counsel I was given, the impression, follow
hmm.
it, because maybe I am a little stubborn and I just keep doing what I'm doing for when I'm not supposed to. Uh, so that was outside of me. I feel like there was a softening for sure, um,
Hmm.
and it was. I mean, I don't think it would have worked if I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely felt like I was maybe aligning myself with something outside of myself. I mentioned in that post how I've also been hearing, um, learning a little bit about the brain and these neural pathways, um,
Hmm.
the way the brain connects itself to different information, and there's this cool thing where if you face your fear or you do something new, or you do something new, or you face your fear, your brain actually has to create it because it has new experiences. It basically puts it into the brain, and the brain reshapes itself in a way where it creates new pathways to existing information, and it also creates new information and connects it with existing pathways. And so for me, at that time, I was like, this me praying and trying to act on my faith, and then receiving this blessing, having that whole event, to me felt like appealing to a system outside my brain, outside of myself, where now these new pathways, whether they're neural or otherwise, there was some new connection that I could not have arrived at earlier. I don't know if that makes sense.
no, absolutely. I'm kind of interested. So, what was it in that moment that you think? Could you kind of saying this whole process is set off by facing something you fear or doing something new? What was it in that case for you that you think kind of set off that process?
Um, I mean, I've definitely been trying a lot harder to prioritize things, like with a little bit more precision, I guess, in my life. Like
Hmm.
it's becoming more and more apparent to me, and just even the last month, like with the last couple months with the quarantine and pandemic going on, it's just so apparent to me that me helping my children with their schoolwork right now, it means that I'm
Mm.
not working on this project. It means I'm not checking out Brandon's page to see what he's working on right now. It means
Sure. You're not missing much.
hey, come on now. Come on now. I don't believe that. No, but it's a sacrifice. And so really the what I want to do is I want to make that sacrifice count. I want to make it
Yeah.
meaningful. And So that's something I've been really aware of in my own life recently is, yeah, I'm working on this thing. It's maybe it's working out for me, but is it good for my family? Is it the best thing I can be doing right now? And it's funny to think about that because I draw goofy cartoons. I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't like some like I'm not a doctor. I'm not out there saving
Sure.
lives or anything. I'm drawing weird pictures that nobody asked for. And yet I feel compelled to do these, and I want to do a good job, and I want to be a good person. I want to, yeah. So I guess that's been on my mind about like, okay, if I'm working on something, I want to put myself 100% into it. I'm talking with Brandon. We're doing this podcast. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
I really do want to connect. I really want to have a good conversation and just make it count. So I think maybe it kind of stemmed from that a little bit.
Hmm. And so if it's the same thing. It's like when you're with your kids, you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing homework with the kids right now, and I can't be doing my work while I'm doing this. You know.
Well, it's yeah, and it is anyone who knows me well knows that I really struggle. I've struggled my whole life with being present.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's living in the moment exactly, but something kind of like that, without attaching like other expectations to it. Just kind of experiencing what is happening right now and taking it for what it is, I guess. That's really hard for me.
Sure.
So so I'm kind of stepping into that. I'm leaning into it and saying, "Okay, I want to get better at this because my wife's really good at living in the moment and she loves it. She thrives." And like I've always struggled because I have to know how does what we're doing now factor into the rest of the day and how does that meet up with my goals for the month and what do I want to accomplish for the year? Because I really do think that way naturally. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, I'm leaning into what's going on right now, and whatever it is, even if I don't want to do it, gosh, man, I better make it count. Otherwise, I'm just suffering. That's all it is.
Yeah. Why are you doing it? What is the point of life if you're just gonna be miserable the whole time?
Yeah, yeah. I think, and for me, as part of my faith, like I think that is kind of a crucial tenet of my beliefs is that in all things we have a choice.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to choose, but we can choose to. Lately, for myself, I think I can choose to overcome or to succumb.
Yeah. Have you talk about being present? Have you like done any played it all with any like meditation stuff to work with that, or is it more just kind of like ad hoc as it comes?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
And I've done different kinds of meditation, and for me right now, what I feel like, I mean, I think of prayer the way that I participate in prayer. I think of that as like a practical meditation.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And then also, yeah, I'm just trying to really be mindful as things happen. And I also, this is how ridiculous I am. I'm a pretty good journaler. I keep a regular personal journal.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah, it's helped a lot for a lot of things. And with being present, like I kind of plan the next day. Hey, remember to pay attention to what's happening all day. But I have to plan being present.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you struggle with any of those things? Planning too much or living in the moment too?
Oh, geez, man.
Yeah.
Geez, that's such like a perennial human problem. Um, no, it's been something that's got so bad for me that it's been debilitating
Mm.
in the past where I just I you know I the way I've conceived of it the other day is that for much of my life like life has been like very gracious to me, but like my mind has not, like I've got like an amazing life, but I suffered from some very crippling depression throughout much of it. And so that's especially frustrating when you're like, I have no reason, like everything's amazing.
Yeah.
And here I am sitting with my kid, and I'm miserable sitting with my kid. Like, why can't I enjoy just sitting here with my kid?
Yeah.
So it's taken me like a lot of dedicated practice to being, paying attention to the moment, to get to a place where I feel like I'm finally able to be like, oh, hey, I can just enjoy life, I can go on a hike and like enjoy the view. It's like, oh wow, I forgot what it was like to enjoy a view.
Do you know what it takes to get to that point where you can, I don't know, let go of, it sounds like a letting go or a releasing of something so that you're just in the moment and appreciating that. Do you know what that takes?
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure it
Yeah.
changes for everybody.
Yeah.
It takes dedicated practice. So the particular practice that I do is called a noting practice. I mean, you can also do like a breathing practice.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because there's some interesting science on this. A lot of like anxiety and depression are generally about thinking about the past and thinking about the future.
Right.
So it's a lot about practicing noticing when you're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, and then kind of letting that go and coming back to an object of concentration, whether it's your breath, or a lot of what I do is literally it's like a moment by moment narration of what's happening. So I will do a practice where I sit and if I have an itch on my nose, I'll say itch. If I'm thinking a certain thought, I'll say thought, and you just kind of narrate whatever's going on, with all of your senses. And it's taken me quite a bit of time though to get to a place like that's the thing I think people don't understand about getting benefits out of meditation, is that I think it takes higher doses than people. I mean, not insane amount of doses,
Right.
but it took a lot for me, and others could benefit from less. But I've had a good time with it.
No,
So
that makes a lot of sense, and I can totally see, like as you were describing, I've got an itch, I say itch. I've got a thought, I say thought. Like in my mind, I was thinking like that's a diagram of sorts. You're building like a map of sorts, and then you can recognize here's X, that's where I am. Here's where I want to go, or just here's the place right now. Here's the situation.
that's most of it. Yeah, is you're kind of like practicing what is. And the idea is as you do it enough, you can drop the labels, and then you're just be aware of stuff as it happens.
So that's me with journaling and drawing.
One thing I think is kind of interesting with this discussion, I think there's kind of this concept of like control that has been big for me. You talk about your story with prayer, and I think this has a lot to do with like prayer. I've definitely had those experiences in my youth too, where it's just like you are in some sort of pickle and you're just totally wiped out. You've exhausted all your options, and last thing you do is you pray, and it's kind of this like you're just giving up control. You're saying like, I don't know what to do here, and there's something kind of magical when you do that, when you kind of give up control, and I think that's, at least as far as my experiences with being miserable, a lot of that has to do is centered on that control, where I feel like I have to control my life, which it's kind of interesting to get back to. I went for a hike, and then I was kind of like, I hope I can get back in time for this interview. And so it was a little bit of a tight turnaround. Like I got back just in time. But in the past, when I was younger, would have been the type of thing where I was like gripping the steering wheel with like white knuckles, like I gotta get back.
Yeah.
And it's like, how does that tension, like that doesn't accomplish anything. I can't control anything. Like I just got to be like, okay, like let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I can't control if my kid comes running in and starts asking me questions while I'm doing a podcast. So that's been a big help for me, is just being like, hey, there's only so much that I can actually, I mean, there may not actually be anything I can really control. I might just be on this ride, and I just got to like make the best of it,
That's really interesting, because I think that also like plays into the idea of like when, a middle-aged person who's been deaf, their whole life. They can't hear, and they suddenly get like hearing implants.
Yeah, like cochlear implants.
Right. But um, in many circumstances, many instances, they don't actually hear your voice. What they hear is a bunch of noise, because you and I grew up hearing, and part of that, living with ears that can hear, is also 80% like blocking out noise that and
Yeah.
sounds that you don't want to hear, like tuning out those frequencies. And so like I remember one day driving back from California years ago, and we're on this really windy road, and it was up and down, and it was dusk, and for whatever reason, I just like hyper focused from out of nowhere on like every yard of road in front of me. And like I've never been like that with things. It just came out of nowhere, and I was noticing how fast we were moving past every sign and every like patch of grass and fence and building, and it was terrifying. All of a sudden I was so aware that I was going 70 miles an hour, whatever it was, in this object, that it's just this weird like vehicle, and like other people that I can't control. And it was kind of an anxiety attack of sorts, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I had to pull over because I was just so focused on the micro. And it's like those, like I think there's so much that we have to tune out in order to make something happen, or to progress, or to take a step.
Sure.
Gosh, it's hard. Like
That's kind of like, that's what like safety is. Like safety is kind of this, we filtered out the sense of safety is kind of this illusion, even though it's important. Like you got to feel safe just to be sane, right?
right.
But dude, at any point, someone could come through the window. There's so many things that could happen at any moment.
Yeah.
And I've had like my moments of anxiety of just like, oh geez, it's so easy. Like the earthquake a while back, where it's just like you're just in bed and suddenly boom, earthquake,
Well, and you're up in Salt Lake, right? You're right by it.
Yeah, we were pretty close. I have to admit that that's kind of a bad example, because I'm someone that's always been like terrified of everything. Like that's like just really epitomizes my personality, is just being a coward. And so as I've like thought about earthquakes, I've always been like, oh geez, I don't know. It's terrified me. But when this one actually happened, like stuff was shaking around and moving around, and I was like surprised how much I was just like amused by it, And every time aftershocks came along, it was kind of fun. But still, it's like, it's easy. It's like this thing you do. I went through this period where anytime I got in a plane, I was just like, oh crap, this plane could like, at any moment, this plane could just crash. Something could go wrong. And it's kind of like you say, there's this noise of like how scary the world could potentially be. You got to learn how to like, I don't know. Was that what you were trying to say? I think that was kind of,
I was just relating with you that like, yeah, if you, without that diagram, without sitting still, however you're able to acknowledge the current status, the situation, the circumstance that you're in, without being able to do that, it's so hard to, one, know where to go or what to do, and then two, how to get there or how to do it, because there's so many, everything could be a distraction potentially.
Oh, sure.
And it could be a good distraction, You could have anxieties about all good things, and you can only do one of those good things. Like that's a rough spot too. But yeah, it's just a weird thing. And thank heavens that we can meditate in these in a variety of ways and have it kind of put things in place a little bit for us. Yeah.
And then I get anxiety about like I can't do all of these things. I kind of want to. So I want to kind of ask you, like, do you have kind of a way that you try to address that? To not like get overwhelmed by all the cool things you could be doing.
Yeah. Well, it's taken me a really long time. But to tie in with what we were talking about earlier, for the last couple of months, I've been like I said, really mindful of whatever I'm doing right now is at the expense of not doing any other thing, and making
Yeah.
that thing that I am doing count. And so the beginning of this year, I decided for myself, um, I was I was in conversation with a publisher about working up a really great contract. So I was like, okay, my goal for this year is to complete that contract, and it's stuff that I really want to do and I've been wanting to do for years. And this publisher is someone I want to work with. Like, great, that's a goal. I want to do that. And if I do nothing else this year, as far as I'll just keep it like work related, as far as like making stuff, there's um, there's a story that I've been adding on to, that I've been building since like, gosh, 2013, like 7 years ago,
Wow.
that I've I've built it up to the point that it's intimidating, right?
Mm.
It's unwieldy. So basically, I realized this has taken up 7 years of my life,
Hmm.
but it hasn't gone away. Like, I'm still excited about all these things. So this year, 2020, I'm going to either act on it or I'm going to move on.
Yeah. When you say you've built it up, it's basically like a bunch of pre-planning on it, right? Or actual work on it.
Yeah, it's like it's a story. So it's like, okay, character designs, environments, thinking through plot points, story structure,
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
creatures and technologies, and like, it's just this open folder for a certain kind of idea that I just keep adding to. And then it's like, yeah, when I make this, it's going to be so cool. Oh man, I keep stuffing stuff in. It's like George's wallet on Seinfeld. It finally breaks because he puts too much stuff in it. And so it's like, either I've got to put this into a new wallet, or I've got to let it break and just enjoy the time I've had with it. And
Yeah.
that has taken me 7 years to get to that point. It's really embarrassing, but I am acting on it. I'm actually doing something with it, and it's because I decided, out of all these things that I could be doing, these are the most important to me right now. And if I work on them, I'm not going to lose anything because I'm working on the most important thing.
Yeah, it's good to actually like finish things too and actually have something where it's like, yeah, I did this thing, Like one piece of work you can be proud of is better than a bunch of cool ideas you never never did anything with.
Well, yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
ideas are like, I know you've worked with like, I think Disney, right, for a bit,
Hmm.
for a few
Yeah.
years, um, and with Image, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there was it Blue Sky? Were you with Blue Sky?
No, so I was at EA before Disney. Um,
Yeah, so like,
So,
if you pitch just an idea, if we're just talking and I describe a thing that does not yet exist in any way, the chances of what you understand that to be and what I'm hoping you understand that to be, they're just going to be very small. But
hmm,
but if we put in the work and I make character designs, environment designs, I have an outline, I have, a color palette, and then I present that with describing the idea. Oh, now there's more substance. Like, you can actually, like, it's a little more tactile. It has some weight to it.
yeah,
So yeah, it definitely goes a lot. Having something to show goes a lot further than just ideas, for sure.
yeah. That's like a big deal, and that's like there's one thing like any young artist can shoot for. It's like you need to find some way to make an idea reality. And I mean, potentially the best thing is like, yeah, find something small that you can make a reality. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we all do have epic things we're working on, but you kind of need to find the cheapest, easiest way to demonstrate, your vision in some way. So,
I had a buddy, just along those same lines, a buddy who, really great friends. We lived like near each other, and we swapped bicycles, and like, we went to
hmm
we went to school together and all this stuff. Great guy. But there was one thing that I always thought was so weird, and I talked with him about it because I thought it was so funny, where he's like, he was going to school to college for hospitality management, and in the summers he would, I'll say travel out of country, and he would buy up a bunch of locally handmade bags that are really cool, like purses and satchels and things.
Okay.
Then he would come back in the fall and sell those while he was going to school. And I was like, so how do what is that? And he's like, well, I sell the bags to make money to go to school. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. So you're going to hospitality management. And he's like, well, I want to start a hotel. I'm like, okay. So that I can create a chain of hotels. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is heavy. All right, sure. You want to do that? And he said, yeah. And then once I've made my fortune, I want to have a vegan restaurant where I teach yoga. And so I'm like, wait, what? And so I made sure that I understood what, that series, that sequence. And he's like, yeah, because in the end, like, all I want to do is teach yoga and cook for people. And I was like, I think just cooking for people and teaching yoga is like a really easy start, probably, like if I drew a line to each of those things he's trying to do to end up at the restaurant and yoga, like you could draw a straight line there, like pretty easily, I felt like. And so I don't know, I just thought it was pretty funny. We all have that in some way.
Yeah. I kind of got to learn trying to make sense of the world and make a practical plan. And sometimes it's a little bit easier than we think, as long as we're able to kind of make some of the choices we want to make. So, well, anyway, man, I don't want to keep you any longer than I have. I got to go take care of the kids too. So I think my son's still in a pull-up, and I should probably address that at some point. So, but anyway, I really appreciate you hanging out with me. It was a real delight. So.
Oh, thank you. It's been great to talk with you, and I love your work, Brandon. I hope you know that we haven't gotten to talk too much in person, but I love what you do. I want to see more of it. I want to see everything work out for you. I'm on your side.
Well, all right. Thanks, man. Feelings mutual.
You've been listening to How to Be an Artist. To support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/H2BNA.